are you mostly immature, juvenile, almost teenagers? Or which means bachelor level or engineer level, mostly? Mostly undergraduate and working on your...
These are undergraduate students, I know. Graduate students here,
so there are some...
for yourself.
Okay, some students who are graduate students doing either master's or PhD, and other could be either bachelor or engineer, yes? Because in Poland we have those two levels. You can either do bachelor or engineer, which is slightly more advanced than bachelor.
No, in here it's the same. When you have an engineering degree, you also have a bachelor's degree.
Okay, and then you could do masters.
Yeah.
And after masters, you can do PhD. Yes. So when you say graduate student, it means that you are at the masters.
Or
master's
PhD.
Student. Or PhD.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a mixed composition. I will not be using this microphone because it's too erotic. It's more power, you need to, sometimes it's very dangerous to use microphone because the speaker doesn't have to do much work and it's kind of becomes really, everybody falls asleep. So it's better to speak with your real voice. And it's important for, it's an important message from me because it matters a lot when you, and we will be talking about it in fact, about how to convince your investors about your project. You cannot be too comfortable yourself because it's just, they will fall asleep and you will fall asleep. So the microphones are sometimes not very good.
I think you can get started.
Okay. Okay, so hello, I'm Michael Jasienski, or in America I would introduce myself as Jazienski. Jazienski because they... after our initial meetings with Professor Echa, we decided that this is okay for me to talk about complete mixed bag of ideas and stimulations that really are helpful for a person who wants to do anything basically, either in pure science or in applied science. But this helps to have a very eclectic means diverse database in your head of inspirations from left to right. And it's just helpful. So there's no logical sequence to my talk. It's just jumping from topic to topic, hoping that, because it is non-linear, there's no textbook on how to be from A to Z, how to be an entrepreneur or how to be a scientist. You just collect inspiration, and sometimes even for scientific papers, even though they have this logical flow from introduction, methods and results and discussion, it doesn't work like that. You write your paper sometimes from discussion. And then of course you may have to modify the discussion based on what the results are. But this is how, it's non-linear. Everything becomes kind of a mixed source of inspiration. So that's why you'll see that the topics sometimes may have nothing to do with each other. And also, I would welcome you if you stopped me and asked if I say something really either silly or unclear. You can stop me because I realize that I'm not senile. I can probably go back to the topic after being interrupted. Okay, so you can interrupt. That would be lovely. Okay, so we'll start anywhere. For example, very important field of cognitive psychology. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, this is very, very important for engineers, for people who design stuff that we use. Those people must understand principles, how we think and how we see the world. So that's why, for example, and cognitive psychology is a huge field. For example, when you design your website, or when you design your business letter, cognitive psychology tells you there are places. I bet there is a laser here. Yes? There's a laser? No? Okay. Cognitive psychology tells you put more important information where people naturally focus their eyes. So don't put very important information about you, about your plans in the right bottom corner, because this is not where people look first. And this is a very important kind of message from cognitive psychology based on research. This is, eye tracking, where people really look, and it's called a heat map. Just like red means mostly visited. Of course, we can immediately see that this is important for designing websites. The classic book on website design is called Don't Make Me Think. And it means exactly that the good designer of a website should know where people will naturally look, so that they don't have to scan the page where the hell is the button, whether I need to click, or it should be there where you need it. In the same way, like when you drive a car and you want to find the button that you need to push without really looking for it, it should be there. But how do you know? We must know. So that's why cognitive psychology is useful. Another thing that cognitive psychology tells us is that the things we have in our heads are interesting. Let's imagine that we visited a tropical jungle forest in South America. We discovered a tribe, and we are trying to. We brought back. We forgot the notes that they used names for two different shapes of ornaments that they were tattooing on their buttocks, say. And what do you think? Which used Kiki or Booba? They used for what shape? What design? What your intuition tells you?
The Kiki will be the right shape and the Booba the left one.
Why? How do you know?
The shape and the name, just there is harmony.
There's harmony in his head. Yeah? The harmony of Kiki and Kiki is. This is. Do you agree with this guy?
Yes.
Yes.
No, you don't.
I think the left one is Kiki because it looks like chicken. I don't know because
Okay.
the chicken sounds like Kiki.
Okay. So what do you think? Who is right? Tell me the vote. Who is right? Is this Kiki or is this Booba?
Kiki.
Okay. So we kind of think that this is Kiki. Sorry for. Of course, we appreciate the diversity. There's always someone who will look at something and say, no, it's just the opposite, and that's the innovation, yeah? But Kiki and Booba. And of course, there's no tropical tribe. It's just, this is how people answer. And we don't know why. Well, there was research why. And in fact, there is such a thing as sense of sharpness. And the sound E is how we pronounce it. It's sharper than oo. It's more smooth. And we don't know why. It's just our coding, our wiring, our software and hardware, which means in this case hardware would be the tongue and our apparatus that we make sound with. A is neutral. But from E to oo, this is clearly there's something that we respond to differently. Even more based on research. It's easier to remember names with m, b, s, p, d, g when they go together with sound, smooth, with round shapes. Go figure. But this is actual research. And easier to remember names with consonant. That go together with sharp-edged. So, what's the message? It's kind of important in the world of total competition, when everything counts. You want to think about the logo for your company, for example, or for your project, that kind of goes together with the name of the project. Why? Because this is how we will remember more easily if it's compatible. Sounds and shapes. We need, that's, of course we can go against the grain and do the opposite. But people will keep on forgetting the name of our company or will not associate it with our logo. So, it's interesting, I think, to use it. And I think that for example, a company that has...
Michael, you have a question?
I have a question in that moment. I get confused. So when you shown us like the letter key, because Kiki and Buba, the letter shapes as key. See, when we go back, but you may have seen. Because
Are
the
you saying
shape
that
is-
the letter...
Yeah, the shape is see, key. So people get confused in that moment. So they can get confused when understand the meaning of the word. So am I right?
I don't understand what people may be confused about.
Because the shape, it's written buba, but the shape looks like key. See? As key.
The yellow one, similar to key letter.
People get confused in that moment because it looks like start with key as letter. The first one is buba.
Okay.
So
Well, maybe confusing, but most people said that this is Buba. Even though the shape maybe I meant it this way. Yeah, because I drew the shape myself. Yes, so maybe I wanted to make it look like it's but it's in fact Buba.
yeah, maybe.
Or maybe I didn't. But anyway, so I think still, even though maybe you may be right that people were confused it because it looked like K, but still most people thought that this is Buba.
Yeah, that's also.
And there's of course no true answer to it, it's just how people respond. Most people think this is Buba, and we should know that smooth round shapes are more Buba-like than Kiki-like. And so, a company that has cell phone communication in Poland is called Play, and I think Play is a very smooth word. And they picked a logo that kind of really makes sense because it's compatible with the sounds that we make. So that's cognitive psychology. Ergonomics. We jump to another thing, which is a field which is worried about whether things we use are ergonomically designed. A very important thing for applied engineering. But not only for specific things that we hold, but ergonomic could be numbering system. This is in Polish, but it doesn't matter, you will see what I mean. The numbering system for seats on the train. And I know because I use those trains between Kraków and Warsaw, and people go into and they this is yours? No, this is mine. Mine was over there. But my wife is sitting over here. There's just no way to guess. So I was trying to show you what this is. This is the logical system that Polish railway system used. Go figure. An ergonomic design would mean that the seat arrangement and numbering system should be somehow maybe more user-friendly than this. We may call this the Polish reversed notation.
There is not 19 number, 19.
If there's no 19,
No.
there's no 19.
Don't you use 19? 19.
But there's nothing special against like 13. No, 19, we don't have any magical Polish thinking about 19. It's it's not there. But anyway, I'm just showing this silly example is that ergonomic, it's not only about shapes of things, physical things, but also how we interact with information. This is also ergonomics. A typical case for the importance of thinking how people use stuff is QWERTY keyboard design. This is a classic, oh sorry, I forgot to switch on time. Okay, now is the time started, but I don't know how many minutes we are into. Anyway, keyboard, very important way we, of course, we use this concept. The problem was, and I'm showing different designs, but the QWERTY, of course, the keyboard, and this is a very famous design that I use only to make our speaker Norberto happy, because it's the one he used to work for Olivetti, as you know from his profile. But this is one of the most innovative companies, but one that also paid incredibly strong attention on the idea of design. It's just not only it had to be perfect from the ergonomic point of view, but also beautiful and simple and all the aesthetic values. So this is Olivetti, ladies and gentlemen, just for Norbert. But anyway, what I wanted to say about the keyboard is that the problem was with typewriters is that the keys were jamming, they were mechanical, and if you were writing too fast, they were just hit it, and you have to then undo them mechanically. There was a problem with jamming. So they had to somehow slow people down how they type. How to do it? You should think kind of like reverse ergonomics. How to make the keyboard less convenient to use. So put the keys in such ways that people will slightly have to spend more time reaching the keys that were very frequently used. Otherwise, if they are too convenient, then the keys would jam. So QWERTY was this way that, for example, letters like E or R, very frequent. They are in the bottom row, in the top row, because it takes a couple of milliseconds more to reach with your hand, and as a result, the other keys have time to go back in the keyboard. Okay, in the machine. So this is the QWERTY keyboard. But there were many different ideas about keyboards, how to do it. And QWERTY, the ironic issue is here that QWERTY is not the most ergonomic, but it had to be introduced to slow people down. It's kind of paradoxical, but c'est la vie. That was the situation, that we were causing the machines to break. So, Dvorak simplified is another keyboard that is much, much better, easier to write, faster. But why don't we use Dvorak keyboard? What's wrong with that we are using QWERTY still, after all those years? And this shows how important it is to, all those historical effects, that a better solution is not necessarily better until people start using it. And it's theoretically better, so what, if nobody wants to switch to it? Which is kind of silly, that still we use QWERTY, even though there are no mechanical limitations anymore, because this is what we deal with. There are no mechanical reasons for it. And we are stuck with tradition of using QWERTY. So this is just like a digression about how difficult it is to introduce innovations sometimes in products when the resistance, the tradition is such that people are not willing to relearn everything from scratch, but they would save time in the process, in the long run. Millions of human hours would be saved if we switched from QWERTY to Dvorak keyboard. Okay, let's jump in another field, but still very close related, of course, to ergonomics. Masters of design. These two important guys. the one on the left I want to talk about, who is Jonathan Ive, chief designer for Apple. Or I should say, Sir Ive, who got, for his achievements in design, he got a Sir in front of his name. Which is, I understand, it's wonderful what he did for designing for Apple. And let's look at a couple of designs from Sir Ive. This is on the left. On the right is an interesting product that existed good 30 years earlier. They look kind of similar. And this is, of course, an iPod, but on the left there's a small radio that was built in 1960s. And here, on the right and on the left you have Apple products, and on the right you have other machines that were built much earlier. Interesting, I would say. And this is on the left. You have the way one of those apps transformed iPhone, and here is an actual hand calculator by Brown, a company that is well known, and I'll show more examples. So, this is an iPod and a speaker, and a Brown product on the left. And here, another design. And altogether, we'll see that sometimes the similarity is striking. And why is that? Well, because of this incredible guru of design, Dieter Rams, who was the hero of Sir Jonathan Ive. Because Dieter Rams was this designer before even 1961, so before Jonathan Ive was born. Brown was making incredible designs that had some special features in them. So product by product, at the top is a typical German in black turtleneck, you know. If you see a guy like that, he's German 90% of the time with a black turtleneck. And Jonathan Ive at the bottom. But you see that the Ive was picking the best ideas, and it's interesting it's a topic for another course, what made those designs so incredibly good. And we'll talk more about some examples, but and this also could take us whole semester to analyze. Dieter Rams had this kind of top 10 principles for good design. And we'll see that a lot of these principles are just very important and universal because they address how we need products to be. Okay, and the idea, of course, important thing for many entrepreneurs is that if you wait for your product to be perfect, just like a design from Jonathan Ive or from Dieter Rams, you will never finish your product. You will never start your company, you will never enter the market. It's a very painful decision at what point we have a product that is all good enough to sell. And may not be perfect, but maybe it's good enough. But from his perspective, an important thing is it cool also, state of the art. It's very, very bad, but it's very modern at the same time. So, there's a lot to be said about designing things, but entrepreneurs must have this psychological open one gate in their heads about deciding that at some point, yes, it's ready. It will never be perfect, but we must go and sell it. Perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. And this is one small digression that I want to make. There's this concept, what is good enough? We need to make decisions, and everything is a trade-off, basically, in the world of design and entrepreneurship. Satisficing is this concept, and I want to emphasize this rule. Is my product good enough? Which means what? Which means if it may not be perfect, but maybe it serves the purpose in a way that is good enough. And what I mean by that, this one This left file is a picture of moi. Sorry, I couldn't find a better picture. But that takes this many bytes. And this one takes 12 times less space. So, when proposing new ideas for products, you compromise. You say, okay, we want as many bytes as possible, as many pixels filled to the capacity as possible, or maybe we don't, because we'll choke the user, the website will not open fast enough. Or, like a whole story with iPod. The idea of iPod was that it allowed people to have music in their pockets because it used MP3 compact format for compacting files. 10 times. Files with MP3 are 10 times smaller than files with CD quality. So you could say, how are you sacrificing all this information and you'll have crappy music? Well, the idea was it's good enough. 90% of the time, the users and entrepreneurs must know that. The users will say, it's perfect, it's good enough. But somebody will say, yeah, but it's just, the sound is, the files are just so tiny that all this lost information that I needed for full experience, CD quality. But 90% of the time, people are using iPods or other MP3 players with just in situations where they would never see the difference. Just like this, more or less. You'll never see, I even look more handsome, I would say, on the right side, with less bytes. We don't want too much information about how I look. So after my talk, don't come too close, because you'll get too much information. But it's very interesting, again, the trade-off between we give them less bytes, fewer bytes for music, but as a result, instead of 5 songs in their pocket, they will have 50 songs, because each file is compressed. And at some point, the technology will give you, instead of 50 songs, you'll have 500 songs, which is pretty cool. And so on and so on. But well, of course, technology will catch up with our needs. So at some point, you'll still be able to have 2,000 songs, 20,000 songs with full CD quality without any compression and compromise. It's just a matter of technological development, but you don't want to wait. You want to be entrepreneur entering the market with a device that gives the function that is good enough. Not perfect. Another idea you can ask, what can I remove from my product? Can I give less? Because less sometimes is more. That's the crucial point. Good enough is one thing, but less is more. What is less here? We look at a car design and think, what can I take away from this design? Because if I do, maybe the function overall will be much, much better. Okay? In this case, it's a concept car. It's not a car that you can buy. But they realize that one thing that we don't need is a thick steel, covering the entire car. Because most of the resistance of the design is not in the thickness of the metal sheet that covers, but in the design, the construction, in the overall skeleton. That's what matters. Everything else you can fill with fabric. And this is the fabric, in fact, special fabric. That, I'm not saying that it's the same fabric like a t-shirt, but it's a very light fabric compared to metal sheets. And it's also incredibly sexy. Look at this, when you switch on the lights, they glow through the fabric. I mean, it's really just gorgeous, wonderful. And when you open the door, it has those wrinkles, It's very nice. But the main point, of course, is that the car weighs a couple of 100 kilograms less than this kind of tank that we usually have, which means less fuel consumed, lighter, more, everything is better when you don't need the tank approach with the full armor. So it's an incredibly interesting idea. Who knows, maybe we'll will have cars like that. And occasionally just a fantastic little wrinkle which shows that we are very modern. But of course you don't want to overdo it, you know, with less is more. It's a great idea, but maybe not necessarily. Just in some cases you want more is more. Okay, another thing is how we must understand as engineers and designers. We must understand human beings. It's just like cognitive psychology, also emotions. Look at what was incredible about how Steve Jobs introduced new products for Apple. And this whole idea that was very different from the way computer companies sold their computers, trying to impress you with how many gigahertz, how many, clock that would run with so many cycles per second, and everything was just so technological. And the users said, I would rather have something that is really, really cool, or really thin. In 2008, Apple MacBook Air was the thinnest possible computer. So thin that people didn't think that it was possible. And so when Steve Jobs was introducing it during one of his famous, presentations, he had something in an envelope under his, under his elbow, and people didn't know what it was. Of course, during his whole presentation, of course, as he always played this trick, he was leaving the stage by the way, he would do this. I have this thing, and of course, the new era of laptops began because this was just. But the crucial point is, when you introduce your product, think about the users, what the users really care about. Maybe not how many gigahertz and how many gigabytes, but the value that you bring to their lives. So, look, the whole presentation was about how happy this technology will make you feel. This is what matters. And not how many gigahertz. That is beautiful. And it's very important for technological things to be beautiful and not offensive. And the phrase less is more comes back, because they had to make this incredible decision. In 2008, this was a very brave decision. Now we know that this is basically the trend that was pushed by Apple, is that no DVD, which means you don't have to carry with you at all times a DVD, CD, drive, burner, thing. In 2008, people were surprised. Are they crazy? I need my DVD. But soon after that, of course, you realize that you don't. You go into cloud or pen drive, and this is how you do it. And also they made a decision that they introduced pen drive based instead of hard drive for storage. And as a bonus, you could get a pen drive based flash memory kind of storage, but less. We'll give you a computer, has no DVD, and has a small 32 gigabyte kind of hard drive, but it's not a hard drive. This was the time when normal laptops had 256 gigabytes. And here you have a bonus of having 32 gigabytes. Are you crazy? I would have to be crazy. Well, they knew that technology soon will catch up. So modern Mac laptops and many others have now 512K gigabytes based on flash memory. But so technology caught up. But at that time, this was this incredible decision. We'll be giving our customers less memory, less storage memory, plus no DVD. But instead, people loved it because they got something else in return. A beautiful thing. The same way in 1999, when a guy named Sean Fenning introduced Napster. That was an interesting and closed chapter in the history of computing, because this was software that really understood what people wanted to do, in this case, share music. So this software allowed users to kind of register the content of their music collections from their laptops, from their computer disks, so that others could kind of copy it. You are not surprised that content providers, which means the companies that own the rights to the songs, didn't like it very much. So they, the lawyers really killed the idea of Napster. But still, the idea was incredible success because he understood what people wanted to do. This was before Facebook, before media-based services like that, but it allowed people to connect first just for sharing files, kind of illegally, but it really this was the first wave of incredible community building ideas, understanding human emotions. Okay, and there's another thing that we must look and pay attention to. Breaking with tradition. And I talk about attracting investors. Imagine yourself standing in front of a room filled with bored, very rich corporate sponsors or venture capitalists. And you want to really use your moment to get their attention with your fantastic idea. And there's not a moment to lose. And you don't have much time. How to use it? You can use any crazy, ways of attracting attention. For example, and this will be a topic that I will get to at the end. I moved the slides at the end because maybe, if you're lucky, will not have time to do that because it's about statistics. How important statistical knowledge and quantitative knowledge is for any civilized human beings, with the exception of poets, maybe. Poets may not need it, but otherwise, if you want to be a modern entrepreneur or a scientist, you must know statistics. And this is jumping out of statistics into the field of how can I present my statistical data. They are very complex. It took me a long time to collect, but I want to send information that is simplified. Well, use the method developed by Professor Herman Chernoff in statistics from Harvard University, who became famous, of course, had an incredible career as a statistician, but he's famous really for one thing, for Chernoff's phases. Because he designed a way of capturing incredible complex information into a picture. So, picture is something that we love. And picture captures information that could be very complex and multivariate, which means many variables. And he had this idea. We don't want to look at the statistical test as much, but for the first reaction, maybe we can code different variable into different part of a face, which means position of your eyebrows, how much you smile, things like that. And this isn't just one of those ways. You need statistics, but you need to convince people. You don't want to kill them with statistics. You want to attract their attention and say, hey, I have this fantastic way. Look, this is the map of United States, part of United States. Each state has a different, and then you have a story to tell. But the story you illustrate with faces that capture, if you explain it a little bit to the users, a lot of information that you don't want to kill them with data. You want to impress them with the take-home message. And this is the notion of elevator pitch. Elevator pitch is the phrase that every entrepreneur knows. Is, on one hand, the word elevator, which means you have 30 seconds maybe to hop on the elevator with someone who has money, the investor. But you don't have much time to explain what you want them to sponsor. So the word pitch comes from baseball, where you want to throw the ball, and the ball is your idea, and you must do it in a very short moment. This is the Google image I found today in the morning, looking for elevator pitch. You do it in 30 seconds. If you cannot explain to others what your idea is, then sorry, Gregory, there's just no way you can be successful because you couldn't, maybe you didn't think about it enough, clearly enough. So you have short time. Think about, can you explain your idea? Maybe 30 seconds is maybe it's not enough. But say 2 minutes. Some people couldn't even do that. And if you go to any conferences, you know that if you have to give a talk that is like 12 minutes or 10 minutes, it's much harder to prepare than 50 minutes. 50 minutes gives you buffer. But 10 minutes, but it's too much for elevator pitch. And really, if you do training in Silicon Valley, you have 2.5 minutes. This is maybe what they practice. And this should be your criteria. You meet your friends, and can you do it in 2.5 minutes, for example, to explain to them what you are after? This is very important. And of course, if you are a woman entrepreneur, you are working against all those stereotypes, we'll be talking about them. But this is additional barrier. People don't expect you to have a good idea. And you must work real hard to convince them in a very short period of time that this is exactly what they are interested in. An important thing, example, how you want to catch the attention. For example, remember that you don't have to be what I called GC, geographically correct. What do I mean by that? Don't show the users, the investors, not the users, the investors. Don't show them, for example, geographical maps, but focus on take-home message, which means what they should pay attention to. What do I mean by that? This is the boring approach. You are showing a map and you put some data and you say, oh sir, oh ma'am, this is what we want to invest here and there because you see it's blue and this is why. What is it blue? She asks. The blue is low or high, but the map is perfect, yes? And then you realize, wait a second, why do I care if the map is correct? If she doesn't remember the shape of Africa, she'll check, or he can check the geographic atlas, yes? But what is my take-home message? My take-home message is that maybe I want to, the take-home message is, look, this is the state of the world with respect to gross national product. And this is what it is. And somebody will say, yeah, but the shapes are different than we have in our geography classroom. And you say, who cares? You know what I mean. This is, the take-home message is in how these, but if you need the good shape, I'll buy you an atlas. But this is what I want to tell you, where the action is, or where the action is not. This is Africa, please note. This thing here is Africa, which means that it could be interesting. Population density. Yeah, but the shapes are all wrong. You see, the Asia is too big. That's the point. That's the point. Because, and this explains your product. Maybe you want to sell contraceptive products to and you have this fantastic new condom that is, you want to really distribute in a population. Where? Here, of course. This is the market where people may want to limit their reproductive output. And I hope this is the first time, maybe not, that somebody used the word condom in this classroom, but I used it already twice. But look at, you can look at these maps in a different way and design them in a creative way depending on what you need for your take-home message. Patents granted. If for some reason you want to talk about, R&D activity in different countries. In this case, Japan generates incredible number of patents. And look at Africa and South America. It tells you something and it may convince, it doesn't have to be a business investor. It could be an office of the Commissioner of the United Nations where you want to get a grant for stimulating R&D. And if for some reason you want to say, well, I want to implement this in Japan. Somebody said, no, that makes no sense. Go to South Africa and South America and Africa. This is, this is clear. The take-home message is where you want to go with your program stimulating patent activity. GDP wealth, poverty. Each of these maps is designed through some computer system program that tells you more than tells you what you want to know. Where the action is, or what areas need to be addressed with your new fantastic malaria kit, the new vaccine and things like that you want to sell. You want to sell them in Alaska? No. You want to sell them where the action is, which means where the malaria deaths are most frequent. So this is your take-home message and not a map of the world. Female managers, we'll come back to this slide. It illustrates where women are reaching managerial and professional positions. And this whole story, we'll come back to this issue later on. Carbon dioxide emissions. Each has a focus on take-home message and not on the correctness of the map. That's an important issue. Okay, now I probably should have 10 more minutes, yes? Etcha?
Yes, you.
Okay, so there's one interesting thing that comes from very interesting idea with very bad quality scans that I did from a book on my shelf. And you'll see what I mean. But this is the concept of the long tail. And it's worth for any entrepreneur, you want to think about it, how and what you want to sell to the customer. And there is an incredible opportunity, this is the message of this part, in your ideas, what you can sell as long as you can reach the customers. And look what the idea of long tail is that the pictures that I will show you have the same structure. It's a movie rank, it's a ranking system where at position 1 is the most downloaded, the most popular, the top bestseller is on the left, and here is a movie or book that's sold in a position 100. And you know that in Amazon, any book that you buy gives you the ranking. Among fiction books, this is number 39 or 1,500,000. But this is the information you get. So this is the picture. The idea is what is interesting about this new online digital system. The curve, demand curve, which means how much people buy or are interested in, is truncated. Truncated means cut. Cut by what? If you have a store that you have shelves on which you put your products, you cannot possibly dream of having, many more than whatever capacity of your store is. Usually a couple hundred types or titles. But if you look broadly enough, you see that, for example, songs that are available to purchase from CDs in Walmart, which is physical, actual store. And the same songs are purchased, you can purchase, it used to be a service like iTunes store for music called Rhapsody. And Walmart competed with online system only. And Walmart, I remind you, are real stores where you have shelves and you go and physically buy those. But they could get up to 25,000 titles. And they couldn't possibly, because they had to have also sell shoes and everything else. Now, Rhapsody had no problem with that. They have this incredible collection of available songs for download. that went down and, you know, to the left, basically here, which means that they created a curve that was based on real number of times that people bought songs. And of course, position 1 is the most frequently downloaded song, and it kept on going. 25,000 was the point where Walmart said, oh, we cannot do anymore, we just don't have shelves. And Rhapsody kept on going. 95,000 titles, but we see that the number of downloads went down, of course. This is how the curve is written. 700 copies per, I assume, per year. 35,000 position. And then down, it kept on going. Rank 800,000 song, sold in, 5 copies? And you could say, are you crazy? Who wants to bother with keeping in your, collection song that 5 people by mistake maybe will buy? Who cares? The point is, it doesn't cost you anything, because they are just files in a huge, in huge servers. And the point is, look, 800,000 position means that you sold 5 songs, 5 copies of that song. And everything else are just adding copies. And overall, you have physical stores, but you have on the right pure digital stores that have absolutely no stress with keeping songs that don't sell often. There could be just weird performers who nobody cares about, very niche, very specialized. And the point is that each of those songs is as costly to store. And of course, super hits, you want to download as many of them because they are super hits. And very rarely downloaded songs are also downloaded occasionally. The point is, it's very, very many of them. So you have one huge super hit, and then very, very, very many rarely downloaded songs. Altogether, they sell incredible number of copies. 700,000 songs, each of which, for example, sold 10, 15 copies, gives you suddenly fantastic source of revenue. And you are familiar probably with this rule, 80-20 rule, which means that 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of the songs. This is kind of an empirical fact that is known. But what happens is that it could be that equally well that could be 70-20 rule, which the point is it doesn't have to add up to 100% because it's about different things. It's percentage of revenue and percentage of songs. You don't add them together. It could be 70-20. 20% of your top songs account for 70% of your total revenue, which means that the rest of it are those strange, rare songs. And can you reject 30% of your potential revenue when the cost of storing those weird songs, Turkish love songs from the 1960s no, that's too broad, by Turkish sailors from the 1960s. You would say, well, it's not necessarily the most hot, items. But somebody said, yeah, no, I love Turkish love songs performed by sailors from the tankers in the 1960s. Yeah, that's my hobby. And I'll buy those, 5 of them. So, we are offering strange offers to people who have very specialized interests, but there's hundreds of thousands of those people. So, your opportunity is in providing, once you have an idea how to distribute that, for example, in an online medium, you can make a lot of money from those strange products that you offer. So the long tail is you provide very specialized ideas and products and services. You can reach the consumers as easily, the customers, as with top hits by Rihanna or Beyonce, but you may have, fewer songs will be purchased by, performed by Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, my favorite guy, who, even though I'm from Poland, I still have some recordings of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. I may be pronouncing his name incorrectly, but I don't care. I actually have his songs, his music. So that shows that there are strange people in any parts of the world looking for much less popular music. Could anybody correct my pronunciation of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan?
Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan.
Oh, that's pretty good. This is what I just said. No?
It was pretty close.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So, also, you want in your product, in your entrepreneurial offering, you want to show yourself that it's you. You are not selling just, Kleenex or some bland, products. You are selling your idea of organic, vegetarian songs from, something that is very, very limited. Okay, see, now I don't have time, and I spared you inspirations from statistics because we don't want that really it will spoil the mood. Plus, I'm out of time. So, thank you.